Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the IGF 2025 Youth Track, proudly hosted by YouthLAC IGF. It's truly an honor to see such a diverse group of young leaders, policymakers, researchers, and advocates coming together to discuss one of the most pressing and complex issues of our time, content moderation in the digital age. As social media continues to shape public discourse, content moderation remains a critical and often contentious issue, especially across the diverse realities of the Global South. Today's session brings together young voices and senior experts to explore how moderation practices influence democracy, human rights, and digital inclusion. According to the United Nations Office of the High Commissioner of Human Rights, internet shutdowns and restrictions on online expression remain a serious concern in many regions, disproportionately affecting marginalized and vulnerable communities. With over 70% of future internet users expected to come from the Global South, according to the World Economic Forum, it's urgent that we discuss inclusive, locally grounded strategies to ensure that digital spaces remain open, safe, and representative of all. Throughout this discussion, we will examine a different approach to content moderation and identify the existing gaps that hinder free expression and equitable participation. We will reflect on how content moderation should be understood within the diverse social, political, and cultural context of the Global South, recognizing that both formal regulation and informal practices play a key role in shaping these dynamics. We will explore how moderation policies can avoid disproportionately silencing marginalized voices and instead serve as tools to protect freedom of expression and digital safety for all users. We will highlight the roles of governments, technology companies, and civil society, particularly from the global majority, in developing fair, transparent, and accountable moderation frameworks. And finally, we will consider how inclusive strategies can be effectively adopted across regions, taking into account unique cultural and regulatory environments to build a more just and participatory digital ecosystem. This workshop is not only about identifying challenges, but also about building bridges between sectors and generations. Our collective goal is to propose actionable solutions and that enhance transparency, inclusivity, and fairness in content governance, ensuring that the next chapter of the internet reflects the diversity and creativity of its users. So with that, I invite everyone to engage openly, listen deeply, and contribute boldly to this important dialogue. Thank you all for being here, and let's begin. Now, to enrich this dialogue, we are honored to have three remarkable speakers who bring diverse perspectives and experiences from government, academia, and technical community. Each of them will have 10 minutes to share their insights and experiences and reflections. After all three presentations, we will open the floor for questions and answers. So please take note of your thoughts or comments during the discussion. To begin, it's a great pleasure to introduce Mr. Chengetai Masango, head of the United Nations IGF Internet Governance Forum Secretariat. Mr. Masango has been a leading voice in advancing multi-stakeholder dialogue with the global IGF community, ensuring that youth participation and regional perspectives are integrated into a broader agenda of digital governance. Mr. Masango, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation to be here. So, dear young leaders, and a very old one down in the corner there, it is a pleasure to join you today at the fourth and final capacity development workshop of the Youth IGF track. For this cycle, we began this journey shortly after the successful Global Youth IGF Summit that we held last year in Riyadh. And there, the youth delivered a clear and powerful message to the world. Young people do not simply deserve a seat at the table. They are essential for shaping digital public policy. You are the most connected generation in history. You are direct beneficiaries of digital innovation, and increasingly it's the designers, creators, coders, entrepreneurs, and public interest advocates. Throughout this year, you have demonstrated that commitment across all regions, from the European IGF in France to the African IGF in Tanzania, the Global Youth Summit in Norway, and the Asia Pacific IGF, and now here in Latin America. concluding this global cycle. Across these discussions, you have tackled one of the most urgent issues in digital governance today: social media governance and age assurance. You have examined opportunities, risks, and responsibilities. You have shared live experiences, debated solutions, and also offered thoughtful, rights-based approaches to making online spaces safer for young users. Today's youth can hardly imagine a world without social media, and a whole generation has grown up knowing nothing else. Gladly, more than 80% of young people have access to the internet, and they use social media every single day. These platforms enable creativity, learning, activism, entrepreneurship, and global connection on a scale unimagined 2 decades ago. Yet, they also present serious risks. We see cyberbullying and harassment. We see exposure to harmful content, invasive data practices, and targeted advertising. We see rising pressures linked to mental health and well-being. Concerns over excessive screen time, addictive recommendation systems continue to grow. In response, many governments are exploring age assurance and child safety frameworks to better protect minors online. But these raises a fundamental question: how do we protect young people while preserving their rights to learn, to participate, to express themselves, and to innovate in the digital world? For policymakers, one truth is clear: we must act, but we must act wisely. Safety and empowerment must go hand in hand. And this work cannot happen without the youth. This was one of the strongest messages at the 20th IGF held this year in Lillestrøm, Norway, including from the Intergenerational Global Youth Summit. Young people must be involved, not as observers, but as co-architects in policy design, in implementation, and in assessment. This conversation comes at a defining moment. This year marks the 20th year since the World Summit on the Information Society, a milestone in global digital cooperation. As the world looks ahead to the next decade of internet governance, your contributions and your leadership will help shape what comes next. I encourage every young person here to stay engaged and to make your voices heard, including through the outcomes of the Youth LAC IGF. Bring your priorities, your ideas, and your innovation into the global debate. Your voice matters, your work matters, and I look forward to learning from your ideas and your vision. Muchas gracias. I hope I said that right.
Thank you very much, Mr. Masango, for sharing such valuable insights on how global cooperation and inclusive participation can strengthen the future of internet governance. Your reflections remind us how essential it is to maintain open and diverse spaces for dialogue, especially for youth and emerging voices from the Global South. Now let's continue with our second speaker. It is my pleasure to welcome Ms. Giovanna Carneiro, a lawyer with a master's degree in law from Harvard Law School and from the State University of Rio de Janeiro. Since 2019, Ms. Carneiro has worked across various areas of law and digital policy within the internet governance ecosystem, including her experience with ITS Rio. She now serves as a law clerk at the National High Court of Brazil, bringing both legal and policy expertise to our discussion on content moderation and digital rights. Mrs. Carneiro?
Hola, hola, hello. I would like first to thank the organizers of this panel for the kind invitation, and also say hello to my fellow panelists and thank the moderation of Fernanda. So today we're gonna talk, the name of our panel is Collaborative Approaches to Social Media Content Moderation. And as Fernanda mentioned, No. Yes, I'm a lawyer by background, and we could stay here for an entire day discussing what are the legal frameworks for social media moderation content. But because this is a youth like IGF and this is not a purely legal congress or conversation, I will spare you of this content, but I just mentioned there are a couple of relevant frameworks from the Brazilian context. You probably know or have heard of the Brazilian Internet Bill of Rights, of the recent case ruling from our Constitutional Supreme Court, which changed the liability system, and also of a couple of legislative proposals that have been discussed in Brazil. And usually these legal frameworks that will somehow impact social media content moderation will relate to a wide range of factors, right? From cyber crimes to content moderation per se, but also fake news, AI, and other topics. And then for those who are interested in this matter from a legal standpoint, I'll give you as a reference this database from Columbia University, which has case law and laws and standards from across the globe, including just recently is the most recent one, a case about Karina Milei's request for prior restraints order. So today, as I will spare you about the legalese, we'll talk about content moderation and design choices, then a little bit on youth users and the choices we make online, and then I will give you some ideas on topic of AI governance so we can think about how this ecosystem is actually being shaped. Jose, if you can help me, it's the other direction. Yes, okay. So what is content moderation and why should we care about this? So content moderation online will happen in different ways, right? It will happen as notice and action measures like take up or take down contents. It will happen as a removal of content, but also as suspension or deletion of accounts. So flagging content and also reducing visibility of a post or of a stories that we might post. How does this happen? Automatically, João Moreno will give you some context about that by, the technical infrastructure and also people and machines that are within the social media platforms and the machine to actually perform this content moderation by notice and also by humans, right? We know that there is usually a strong safety and trust and safety team in most major social media platforms that will do this work. And they are usually defined by a platform's content moderation policies or community guidelines, basically, as we discussed today, as a top-down approach. And we users are usually just knowing these policies. Sometimes we don't even know about them. And then we are just subjected to these policies that are global and sometimes will impact us locally in different or even unwanted ways. Can you come back? Back. I can do it. I think, yeah, it's just the opposite. Okay, so why do we care? Again, because these choices will influence our decisions and our behavior online, right? Basically, if we post something and our content is moderated, it's gonna influence how our voices are heard and how the people who follow us or who don't follow us, if we're paying for the content to have a larger reach, they will impact and influence our decisions and our behavior online. But what about design choices that these platforms will make? At the first picture, you see labeling misleading content that is regarded as an idea, as how we might be able to curb and inform users of fake content or misleading content. And on the right, you see the famous dark patterns. In the first example, it's a green light for a no. So our first sense, our first flavor is to press no because it's green, but maybe we would want to press yes. And the next one is, are you sure you want to unsubscribe? It's keep subscription. The design will make us act in a way that is to keep our subscription or to sometimes press no when we wanted to press yes. So all this to say that design choices are regulatory choices, and that design will shape our behavior and also will respond to state regulation. So if there is a law that might say that the social media platform has to flag a content in a certain way, the platform will have to adapt its design in response to that law. This is not a new idea. This is actually being said since 1999 in academic literature in a very specific way. One example is the work by Harvard Law School professor Lawrence Lessig, who has published Code and Other Laws of Cyberspace at first, but then the work that has shaped this idea is specifically the law of the horse, what cyber law might teach, where Professor Lessig will argue that there are 4 modalities of norm behavior shaping in cyberspace: market, architecture, law, and norms. The 4 of those, they work together, and the regulation free of any particular policy is the sum of all the regulatory effects of these 4 modalities together. So, for instance, specifically on the design question, he was the professor who theorized that the code will be shaping our behavior and will also be shaping policy, as we just discussed. And then later on in 2022, at a talk about the metaverse, he actually said that he doesn't want to focus too much on code and on software anymore. He wants actually to focus on the power imbalances between these 4 modalities that back in 1999, he focused and he described as acting in a certain balanced way, right? But then he recognizes and sees that maybe business models are eating the law because they are shaping legal regulation and legal norms in a way that we didn't expect and that might not be wanted by us in academia and by the society as a whole. So he says that if the first slogan was "Code is law," I think we need to see that business models eat law. And Professor Ana Frazão from University of Brasília in Brazil, she summarized this line as "Code eats law." And I think it's a very good way of summarizing it because this might actually show us a power imbalance that we might be seeing in internet governance now, right? We are here talking about youth and LACIGF. So we are in an internet governance space. And we learn from the foundations of internet governance that we have the stakeholders all together on the table and that we might all be speaking on the same level of power and in a kind of a sort of balanced approach. What Lessig said in 2022 is that, well, this approach, right, might be imbalanced. And I think this is an important factor for us to think of, both during Youth LACIGF, but also through LACIGF, who I assume many of you will be attending on Wednesday and Thursday. And we could be, again, discussing this for an entire week, perhaps, about how IG has developed in a way that might be imbalanced and that it's probably an unwanted way for most of us. But today I would like us to focus on the individuals part of that construction and on us as users, as people who are shaping the internet and who are consuming the content we make online. So I looked on ITU for facts and figures for internet access and individuals using the internet. And we all know that this number is rising by the day. So this report from 2024 brings 68% of internet users. And in the Americas in 2024, it has 87% of individuals using the internet. But these Americas include United States and Canada per an ITU definition. So the Inter-American, I think it's the World Bank actually, published a report in 2021, which will estimate that the Latin American and the Caribbean average is 67% of people online. However, we do know, and again, we discussed a lot about this today, that this internet connection is not always meaningful. There is a lot of work to be done in terms of meaningful access to internet. But just as an example here, as how we are using internet. But I'm assuming that we all in this table, we all use the internet, right? And we all use social media. So for us to know a little bit more about each other, I would like to invite you all to join this Mentimeter. You can either just use the QR code or join menti.com and enter the code that is on the presentation. You can also click on more than one platform. So we can see your answers on the go. So nobody uses Roblox. I learned about Roblox yesterday, and then today, yes, yes, yeah. I don't have siblings, and my oldest cousin is my youngest cousin is 15 years old. So let's see here. Yeah, because I put Roblox and other gaming, right? So if you even like PlayStation, like there are games that will. Okay, so let's see. 20 is WhatsApp with messaging. LinkedIn and Instagram are the most used social media platforms here. So we see that we need more children and teenagers probably, right, in this room. So, and maybe they will go and press other social media platforms. Giselle, can you? So I will invite you to think about this and ask, so we can ask ourselves, what is the network effect that we have as we use these platforms and how we use them and how we know about their policies? Because guys, the truth is, if we are the experts on the table, right? We are here at an event. We spent like 8 hours discussing about internet governance. We cannot expect a layperson who has a shift working at a shopping mall or at a supermarket or in the rural zones or an industry to be thinking about the internet as we are. And if we don't have control or at least some more knowledge of how this technology that we use are being used, how can we expect this very meaningful and critical lens from other people? So I would invite you to think about this, and then more specifically to think about how we can impact our own communities with the knowledge we have. And this leads me to talk a little bit about the CGI-BR, the Brazilian Internet Steering Committee Youth Program. Marcelo earlier today explained to you all a little bit about the youth program, and I would just like to emphasize a couple of points. So this year we are celebrating 10 years of the program. All 5 regions of Brazil are represented. Participants ranged from 18 to 25 years old, Brazilian residents, and then participants who have already participated in one of the international events, they come back as facilitators, which is my role this year. I am here as part of the Brazilian Youth Program, and I am joining together with Yuri, Louise, Nathan, and Jamerson here. And I see here many fellow participants who were in other years of the program. And you can see that it's not only the work and the influence we have when we are here sitting physically at the events. I will argue, and this is my main point here, that internet governance awareness and how we will behave, how IG theory will impact our behavior daily, this will start at home. So this is our directed study, and we all connected on Gather. And there were people who were like, oh, Father, remember this? Like, fathers, wait, I cannot join you for lunch because I'm finishing up something. This leads to a conversation 15 minutes after about the father asking what the kid was doing. And then the kid has to explain what Gather is and why his internet connection was good or not. So see, it's not only the 100 person, 150 person in the directed study that are impacted, it's also the community and the family of each person. And when, of course, we are selected to come here, it's even more because our bosses, our fellow workers, everyone wants to know Why are we going to Córdoba for a week, right? So this happens more than we as a person alone. It's a network effect, and I think this is a network effect that can also happen in all fellow Latin American and the Caribbean residents that are not there. But this is the youth program in Salvador this year, and in Lillestrøm, Norway. And most of them are not here because they're on the other side. And Luis and Denise are launching a book about how internet is being used, and bringing another narrative about how internet being used. So see the effect and the power of programs like that to engage people to think critically about the internet. But I will argue and emphasize that it's not only the work that we do now, it's also the work that we do at home, at work, and with our peers on our day-to-day. And then to conclude, I would like to take one step further and make us reflect a little bit on our experience, more recent experience with AI tools. There is a debate, right? And we're not going to talk about this now, but how is internet governance being shaped and developed, and how are we including AI-focused discussions on this ecosystem? But regardless of the definitions that we use, AI is being increasingly used, and we use it through the internet, right? And I would like to point out that content moderation, although we focused for the past years on social media platforms, it is now happening on companies and platforms that are offering large language models, because these models come to us trained by a certain kind of standard. It's not social media moderation per se, but it is also a very specific influence of these companies on how we are using the internet and how we are interacting with technology. So as a user, what do we do? And as youth, what is our role? This is still being shaped, and I'm not giving you an answer, but this is just a point line for you to think of. And then just for us to know a little bit again on how we are using this platform, I would like you to share a little bit on which LLM, if any, you use. Okay, yeah. So QR code or menti.com, and then you can enter the code. 41967966. 41967966. 66, yes. Were you able to join? Yeah? José, can you? Okay. So ChatGPT is the winner among us, at least. Gemini, Claude, only 3. Maritaka AI is a Brazilian model and company. Perplexity, then Copilot, Llama, DeepSeek, other, and we don't have one in none. So we have all been using large language models or LLMs. Okay, so let us all think about this and what might have been different a year ago, or maybe a couple of months ago. So clearly these technologies and these applications have already entered our lives in a different way from social media, but also in a very impactful way, and again, in a top-down manner. One second, I'll just go back to the presentation. So take a moment to reflect and to choose and to remember that just as lay user is not really expected to learn about the policies, we might be a little bit more. I invite you to look at this study on be careful what you tell your AI chatbot that compares how these models and how these companies offer certain choices that we can all I invite you to do that later tonight or tomorrow, to just look at your settings and see if you want your data to be used for training the models, and also for if you want your chat history to be saved. So with this in mind, I would like to thank you all for your attention and say that, again, the future of IG and of internet applications and of technologies of internet governance as a whole also depends on us. There are power imbalances to address, but as youth and as users shaping the internet, we also have some homework to do, and I invite you to do it and together as the youth program. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Carneiro, for such an insightful presentation. You've helped us reflect on the foundations of social media moderation and reminded us why these conversations truly matter. Your emphasis on youth engagement, the responsible use of online networks, and the role of regulation offers a clear path toward more ethical and inclusive digital spaces. And your reflections on artificial intelligence and how we should behave and adapt to these emerging technologies give us much to think about as we look toward the future of internet governance. Now we'll move to our third and final speaker. Please join me in welcoming Mr. João Moreno, a software developer consultant and the lead facilitator for the Internet Society Youth Standing Group and the Youth Coalition on Internet Governance, representative for Latin America and the Caribbean. I would like to add that he is also an active member of the Youth LACIGF committee. Mr. Moreno brings the perspective of the technical and youth communities, focusing on how young professionals can contribute to shaping a fair, transparent, and participatory digital ecosystems. Mr. Moreno?
Thank you, everyone. It's an honor to be the last speaker. So I just want to have a quick note on the youth program. I was introduced to internet governance by the Brazilian youth program, and I went to many IGFs not related to this program. And people always approach me and say, like, why there are so many Brazilians here? And I say, well, it takes effort, but they built an ecosystem that fosters the participation. And this is why we still see people that participated a long time ago, but still involved. So I would like to use my time here to give you a technical presentation standpoint on the content moderation, and also not losing touch with our main discussion, which is the youth approach of it. So the first thing I would like to highlight is about how the internet is one, and it is built to link many. And saying that it's kind of crazy because we know the huge amount of information there is in the internet, and always all the systems try to filter it out for you. So this is a standard protocol, like how you will develop the search bar of your system. This is very important, and this is a kind of moderation because you need to understand what are the desires of your users and try to filter out what is unnecessary, unpleasant, or not needed. So, and they need to do this with little to no context. So if you go to a website and search for wedding dresses, and you put there, well, if you do this in Brazil, you'll see something. If you do this in India, you need to see something totally different, because the context of that, what the person wants to see, it changes. And this, almost all the systems need to do this kind of choices on how to deliver this information. So the first thing about content moderation is that we can divide it by the invisible moderation and the visible ones. So when we say about the visible moderation, we are speaking of like explicit takedowns. You said you took it out, and we can say about labels, warnings, age gates that are widely being discussed in Europe right now, and geo-blocks, strike systems with notices or appeals. So when we talk about the invisible moderation, we are speaking of downranking, which is you sort the information in a way to take out some kind of information, or like to not highlight it, and with limited distribution, shadow bans, and search autocomplete suggestions. And this is kind of crazy, because when we think of how we write texts in our phones and computers, we rely heavily on the autocomplete functions. And this induces us of thinking in a way. It's like, oh, don't use this word. Actually use this one because it's better. And the system needed to create this rule to switch it to propose a change in what you wrote. And when we go further into the content moderation, we can speak of automated and manual moderation. So both of these approaches have pros and cons, and I wanted to bring it here because it's hard when we are discussing moderation to find a silver bullet, because, well, for example, automated moderation can have speed, it can scale, it handles massive volumes and emergent spikes, which means if the users start to use a specific system in a time of the day, you don't need to rely on people like running over to help others. The system auto scales, and it has, in comparison, a much lower cost. But the weak spots are they have a weaker context. They can work as a bias amplificator. It have a limited explainability because you create a set of rules, but it's hard to put this in a way to the user to say, okay, we downranked this content because of this specific part. And it can come with unfair outcomes because we don't have human interaction. But when we start saying about a manual moderation, its pros are that you can handle nuances, you can handle the social cultural context, like hiring people from the communities you want to construct this content for, and the ability to weight intent versus effect, which is very effective when we talk about people. And well, the cons are it's slower, it's expensive, it can exposure the moderators to traumatizing content, and we have several reports on this. And it requires like rotations, counseling, and wellness safeguards for these moderators. So like a good approach are to have people in the loop, but have steps, automated steps to speed things up and reduce the cost, even though you need a structured way of dealing with unfair outcomes. And so I wanted, as I spoke about this technical issues of moderating, I wanted to bring the youth perspective into it. And I brought two main subjects in this part. The first one is the issue of the filter bubbles for teens. So everyone knows how unique our feeds in the systems are to us. And this creates a major risk to a kid, because it is the only person that says the word like this in a time that it's very important to build character, to create their development. And it's hard for the parents and counselors to see the word as the specific person seeing. And also, we have the risk of incurring indefinitely censorship and the difficulties on handling different cultures, because something that can be totally fine for a culture can be very offensive to other. And well, the internet has it all. But we need to provide a safe space to different people. And to finalize, I wanted to bring some suggestions that I put into to discuss this youth part, which is try to work in teen-centric controls by default, the youth-friendly appeals to the content moderation, and invest in local language coverage, because as we speak about different cultures, the language barriers can introduce a lot of issues if we consider that it really changes the context of communication. And we need, and it's important to have community review channels, safety by design, of course, and work in digital literacy for the youth community to be able to use these systems in a meaningful and safe way. And yeah, this was what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moreno, for bringing such a powerful human perspective to this discussion. Your remarks on how the internet connects people and the visible and invisible layers of moderation highlight the complexity behind our digital interactions. You've reminded us that content moderation is not only a technical or policy issue, it deeply affects real people, especially young users whose voices and creativity shape the internet every day. Your focus on the human impact on regulation helps us ground this debate in empathy and accountability, both essential for building a fair digital future. Thank you once again to all of our speakers, Mr. Masango, Mrs. Carneiro, Mr. Moreno, for your thoughtful and inspiring contributions. Each of you has shed light on different dimensions of content moderation, from the global governance perspective to the legal and ethical frameworks, to the human and youth-centered impacts that remind us what's truly at stake in our digital lives. As we've heard today, content moderation is not just about technology or policy. It's about people, rights, and the kind of internet we want to build together. It's about ensuring that the digital spaces of tomorrow are inclusive, transparent, and fair, especially for the younger generations who will shape the future. We will now open the floor for questions and comments from the audience. Please feel free to share your reflections, experiences, or challenges. This is your space to join the conversation and help us imagine a more equitable and human-centered internet for all.
Muchas gracias. Hi, good afternoon. My question is basically basing ourselves in the works of Shoshana Zuboff, which it's in Harvard, of course. Well, the question is, she argues that there's a principle of behavioral technology, and that the ideas of Skinners are being incorporated into the design of user experience platforms. The best case I can think of this is TikTok, which follows very high stimulating pulses for the user that aim to retain the attention of the user. following the ideas of LACIG, specifically about the regulation of the architecture of the platforms, how can we, from a policy and lawyerish standpoint, influence or regulate the design of platforms without being seen in the private sector or the academia as overprotective? Because at the end, like, suffocating innovation is sometimes like the counter argument that it's given towards the advancements on policy. But I think that the safety of the users, which sometimes are children, admits such restrictive measures. I don't know what's your opinion about that. Oh, thank you.
Okay, so I think this is one of the questions that asks us how to solve a very big problem. And I think we've been trying to solve that problem in different ways, like for the past, 20 years. So there's no easy answer for that. But I would say that stakeholders will always contest a change. So if there is a certain policy or regulation that will try to force a company to make a design choice in a certain way, there will be contestation. And this is even like expected from the debate and from the policy ecosystem. But then is a question of what is the policy choice that the regulator wants to make? Because the dichotomy between innovation and regulation is already long gone, and there are many ways that we know that policymakers can drive regulation without curbing innovation in that way, right? Like there are ways that you could draft a law that will not focus on technology itself, but might focus on user behavior, right? There are ways that you could make the company have a choice on which is the best technical option to use to have a certain result. So, and also then regulatory sandboxes, policy experimentation. There are many ways that companies could face these regulatory requirements in a different way. And I would say that us as the youth and as, like not only law scholars, but as anthropologists, as political science, as programmers, as people in this space, we need sometimes also to think about what we want. Because speaking, making the devil's advocate here, I think that sometimes we don't really know what we want. And even in the policy arena, there are so many debates within civil society that it's hard to know what is the best policy option from a civil society standpoint, right? There's a lot of conflict inside one stakeholder as well. And we also need to be mindful and then maybe try to work together to find more long-lasting common grounds.
I was actually waiting for you to say we can do this through a multi-stakeholder model where all the stakeholders are involved, because those algorithms are there because they help the companies maximize profits, right? And that's what the companies want to do. But the roles of the regulators and also civil society, I suppose, as well, is the social good, that it shouldn't just be creating zombies, but there should be a social good there. So there is that balance. And the only way you can do that is not just by the regulators talking to the companies, but everybody saying their piece that, look, yes, TikTok is good. It helps the youth or express themselves, but we see that this is happening and this should be curbed. How can you yourselves self-regulate it? And then they can come to some sort of understanding. So I think that's one way to go about it.
I wanted to thank our speakers for your time and your insights. A heartfelt thank you as well to all of you, the audience, for your engagement, your thoughtful questions, and for being a part of this important dialogue. Spaces like the Youth Like IGF exist because of you, your participation, your ideas, and your commitment to shaping internet governance with purpose and diversity. As we close this session and the first day of the Youth Like IGF 2025, let's take a moment to recognize that the conversations we started here will continue to grow, inspire action, and strengthen our collective voice in shaping the internet we all want. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow for another day full of learning, connection, and inspiration. Have a great evening, everyone.